The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark between stars. It was bigger than most planets and home to millions of beings. This was where the Galactic Dominion Council ruled over thousands of worlds across the galaxy. Today was special. Today marked 30,000 years since humans had been wiped out completely. The three ruling species were celebrating this victory like it happened yesterday. Taemin walked through the crowded celebration halls. He was young for a Valith, with green scales that shined under the bright lights. While others drank and laughed, he felt uncomfortable. As an archaeologist, he spent his time digging up the past. What he found on dead worlds often made him question what really happened long ago. The Valith were reptile-like creatures who controlled most of the galaxy's military forces. Their thick scales could stop bullets, and their cold blood made them think clearly even in dangerous situations. They believed strength was everything. Near the viewing windows, Sora stood alone watching the stars. She was Krenth, one of the insect people who ran the science divisions. Her 4 arms moved constantly as she worked on a small device. The Krenth were always building, always thinking, always planning. Their compound eyes could see things others missed. High above them, floating near the ceiling, energy beings called Solari moved like living lightning. They had no solid bodies, just pure energy held together by their will. The Solari controlled information and communication across the galaxy. Nothing happened without them knowing about it. 30,000 years of peace, announced General Minho from the main stage. He was an old Valith warrior whose scars told stories of many battles. 30,000 years since we removed the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known. The crowd cheered loudly. They remembered the stories their grandparents told about humans. These strange creatures had refused to bow down to the Dominion like all other species. Instead, they fought back with weapons and ideas that should not have worked. They were weak and small, but somehow they kept winning battles they should have lost. Humans were a disease, Minho continued. They spread chaos wherever they went. They refused to accept their place in the natural order. But we cured that disease completely. Taemin felt sick listening to these words. 3 weeks ago, he had been exploring a dead world called Terra 7. It was supposed to be empty, just rocks and dust. But deep underground, he found something that changed everything he believed. The ruins were clearly human, but they were wrong. The technology was too advanced. The weapons were too powerful. The star maps showed places that did not exist on any current charts. Everything he found suggested that humans had been much more dangerous than anyone realized. Sora noticed Taemin's worried expression. She approached him with quick, insect-like movements. "You look troubled, archaeologist. Are you not happy about our great victory?" "I found something," Taemin whispered. "Something that does not match what we were taught about humans." Sora's compound eyes focused on him with sudden interest. "What kind of something?" Before Taemin could answer, the lights dimmed. A new speaker took the stage. This was Commander Wubin, a Solari whose energy form crackled with authority. When Solari spoke, their voices came from speakers throughout the room because they had no mouths. "Citizens of the Dominion," Wubin's voice echoed everywhere. "We gather today to celebrate our greatest achievement. The elimination of humanity was not just about removing one species. It was about proving that order will always defeat chaos." Taemin remembered what he had found in those ruins. Human writing that seemed to bend space around it. Weapons that looked like they could tear holes in reality itself. And most disturbing of all, clear evidence that some humans had escaped before the final battle. But we must stay alert, Wu Bin continued. Even dead enemies can teach us lessons. We must remember what made humans so dangerous, so we never face such a threat again. Sora leaned closer to Taemin. Tell me what you found. As a scientist, I must know. Taemin looked around to make sure no one was listening. The ruins I discovered were not from the time of the war. They were much older, and the technology— He paused, struggling to find words. The technology was beyond anything in our current databases. That is impossible, Sora replied, but her voice carried doubt. I thought so too. But I ran every test I could think of. The evidence is clear. Humans had developed things we still do not understand today. At that moment, a maintenance worker approached their section of the station. He looked like a Vailith, but something about him seemed different. His movements were too smooth, too calculated. His eyes held an intelligence that seemed almost alien. The worker was actually Jinwoo, though no one knew his real name or nature. For decades, he had worked in the shadows of Nexus Prime. He cleaned floors, repaired systems, and listened to conversations. Everyone ignored him because he was just a worker. That was exactly what he wanted. Jinwoo had heard every word between Taemin and Sora. He had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Someone had finally discovered the truth about what humans had really achieved before the war. As the celebration continued around them, Jinwoo made small adjustments to the stations. Communication systems. Messages began flowing to hidden locations throughout the galaxy. Messages that had been prepared and waiting for 30,000 years. The party grew louder as the night went on. Violet warriors told stories of the final human battles. Krenth scientists shared data about human weaknesses. Solari commanders played recordings of human surrender requests that had been ignored. None of them noticed the small changes happening around them. Lights flickered in patterns that meant nothing to them but everything to others. Computer systems accessed files that had not been opened in centuries, and in the deepest parts of space, things that had been sleeping for 30,000 years began to wake up. Taemin finally decided to show Sora the evidence he had collected. They left the celebration and went to his private laboratory. As the door closed behind them, Jinwoo smiled for the first time in decades. The plan was working perfectly. Soon, the galaxy would learn that reports of humanity's death had been greatly exaggerated, and the Dominion would discover that some mistakes can never be forgiven or forgotten. In the depths of space, far beyond any star that appeared on Dominion charts, massive ships began moving toward the galaxy. They had been waiting patiently for this signal. Now, it was time to come home. Captain Hyojin stood on the bridge of her warship, staring at the empty space where Colony Base 7 should have been. 3 days ago, the base had been home to 50,000 people. Now there was nothing but floating debris and silence. "Any survivors?" she asked her crew. "None, Captain," replied her communications officer. "We found a few escape pods, but they are all empty. Whatever happened here, it happened fast." Hyojin was the experienced Vailith officer who had served the Dominion for 20 years. She had seen pirates, rebels, and natural disasters. But this was different. The colony had not been destroyed by normal weapons. The metal showed burn marks from energy types that did not exist in any database. "Take us to the next system," she ordered. "Maybe we will find answers there." But the next system was the same, and the one after that. 7 colonies in 2 weeks, all gone without explanation. The few survivors they found all told the same impossible story. Black ships had appeared from nowhere, moving in ways that defied physics. The attacks lasted only minutes before everything went dark. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, Sora was working day and night in her laboratory. The artifacts that Taemin had shown her were unlike anything she had ever seen. The human technology seemed to bend the rules of science in ways that should not be possible. "Look at this," she said to Taemin as he entered her lab. She pointed to a small device that floated above her workbench without any visible power source. "This is a human tool, but it uses principles we do not understand." Taemin examined the floating object carefully. "What does it do?" "Near as I can tell, it manipulates space and time on a very small scale. But the energy requirements should be enormous. Yet I cannot detect any power source at all. Maybe humans found a way to tap into something we have not discovered yet," Taemin suggested. Sora's forearms moved quickly as she took more measurements. "That is what worries me. If they could do this with small devices, what could they do with large ones?" Across the galaxy, Commander Wu Bin was receiving disturbing reports from his patrol fleets. The Solari network carried information faster than any physical ship, so he knew about the missing colonies before the local authorities did. "Show me the attack patterns," he ordered his subordinates. A holographic map appeared in the air, showing the locations of the destroyed colonies. They seemed random at first, but Wu Bin's energy-based mind could process patterns that others missed. These are not random attacks, he realized. They are following old human trade routes from before the war. General Minho was called to an emergency meeting of the Dominion Council. As one of the few leaders who had actually fought humans during the war, his opinion carried weight. "Impossible," he said when shown the evidence. "We killed them all. I was there during the final battles. We watched their last planet burn." "Then explain this," said Wu Bin, projecting images from the attack sites. "The weapon signatures match no known technology, but they are similar to theoretical human designs from our old intelligence files." Minho studied the data with growing unease. The burn patterns did look familiar. During the war, humans had used strange weapons that seemed to work differently than normal energy blasts. They called it probability disruption technology, though no one understood what that meant. "Even if some humans survived," Minho said slowly, "they could not have advanced this much in 30,000 years. They were barely more advanced than animals when we destroyed them." "Were they?" asked a new voice. Everyone turned to see Jin Wu entering the meeting room. But something was wrong. He was not wearing his maintenance uniform. Instead, he was dressed in clothes made from materials that seemed to shift and change color as he moved. "Who are you?" demanded Minho. "How did you get past security?" Jin Wu smiled calmly. "I have been here for 37 years. I cleaned your floors, fixed your machines, and listened to your secrets. You never saw me because you thought I was unimportant." "Arrest him!" Minho ordered his guards. But when the guards tried to grab Jin Wu, their hands passed right through him like he was made of smoke. He was standing there, but somehow he was also not there. "You cannot touch me because I am not entirely in this dimension," Jin Wu explained. "Humans learned to step between realities long before you tried to kill us all." Wu Bin's energy form crackled with fear and anger. "You are human, but that is impossible." "Many things are impossible until humans decide to make them possible," Jin Wu replied. "We survived because we became something you could not imagine. And now we have returned to collect what you owe us." Captain Hyejin was investigating another destroyed colony when her sensors detected something new. A ship was approaching from deep space, but it was unlike anything in her files. It was black as the void between stars and seemed to absorb light, rather than reflect it. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself," she broadcast on all frequencies. The response came back in perfect Dominion standard. "This is Admiral Su-Jin of the Terran Remnant Fleet. You are in violation of human space. Withdraw immediately." "Human space?" Hyejin laughed. "Humans have been extinct for 30,000 years. "Reports of our extinction were greatly exaggerated," came the cold reply. "You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal before we demonstrate how wrong your history books are." Hyejin had a full battle fleet under her command. 20 warships with enough firepower to level a continent. She was not about to be intimidated by one mysterious vessel. "All ships, battle formation. Prepare to fire." The human ship did not try to run or hide. Instead, it just waited patiently as the Dominion fleet surrounded it. "Fire!" Hyejin ordered. 20 ships unleashed their weapons at once. Energy beams that could slice through asteroids, missiles that could destroy cities, particle weapons that could boil oceans. All of it struck the black ship simultaneously. When the light faded, the human vessel was completely undamaged. Its hull had not even been scratched. "Your turn," Admiral Su-Jin said calmly. What happened next took less than 3 minutes. The human ship moved in ways that violated every law of physics. It was in front of them, then behind them, then above them, sometimes seeming to be in several places at once. Its weapons fired beams of something that was not energy or matter, but something else entirely. One by one, Hyejin's ships exploded or simply ceased to exist. The human vessel never seemed to hurry or strain. It moved through her fleet like a predator among prey, methodical and unstoppable. When it was over, only Hyejin's flagship remained. The human ship positioned itself directly in front of her view screen. "Return to your masters," Admiral Su-Jin said. "Tell them that humanity remembers every crime they committed against us. Tell them that we have had 30,000 years to grow stronger and plan our revenge. And tell them that this is only the beginning." The black ship vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving Hyejin alone among the wreckage of her fleet. She sat in her command chair, shaking with fear and disbelief. Back on Nexus Prime, Jinwoo was finishing his conversation with the Dominion Council. "How many of you survived?" Minho asked. "Enough," Jinwoo replied. "More than enough." "What do you want?" Jinwoo's smile disappeared, replaced by an expression of cold fury that made everyone in the room step back. "We want justice. We want acknowledgement of what you did to us. And we want to make sure it never happens to anyone else ever again. And if we refuse, then you will join us in extinction. The choice is yours." With that, Jinwoo faded away like smoke, leaving the council alone with their fear and the growing realization that their greatest nightmare had come true. Humanity was back. The emergency session of the Galactic Dominion Council had been going for 6 hours straight. Reports kept coming in from across the galaxy, each one worse than the last. Human ships were appearing everywhere, and the Dominion military could not stop them. Young-Soo was a mid-level Krenth politician who had never believed the stories about human savagery. He thought the war 30,000 years ago had been a mistake, a failure of diplomacy. Now, as he watched the casualty reports pile up, he was beginning to understand why his ancestors had been so afraid. 17 more colonies have gone dark. reported a junior officer. The same pattern every time. Black ships appear, defenses are neutralized instantly, and all communication stops. General Minho slammed his fist on the table. Where are they coming from? Our sensors show empty space. Then suddenly they are there. They are using some kind of dimensional technology, explained Sora, who had been analyzing the attack data. Based on the energy signatures, I believe they can step in and out of normal space at will. Admiral Su Jin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Vengeance of Earth. Around her, dozens of human vessels moved through the void like deadly shadows. Each ship was a masterpiece of technology that had been refined over 30 millennia of exile. Status report, she commanded. Phase 1 is complete, Admiral, replied her tactical officer. All Outer Rim colonies have been neutralized. Dominion forces are pulling back to defend their core worlds. And their military response? Predictable. They are using the same tactics they used against us 30,000 years ago. They have learned nothing. Su Jin nodded grimly. The Dominion had grown complacent during their long rule. They had forgotten that humans were dangerous not because of their technology, but because of how they thought. Humans adapted, improvised, and found solutions where others saw only problems. Begin Phase 2. Target their supply lines and communication networks. Make them afraid to leave their home systems. On the planet Keth Prime, Tai Min was working frantically to decode more human artifacts. The archaeological site on Terra 7 had been just the beginning. Now that he knew what to look for, he was finding evidence of human presence on dozens of worlds that were supposed to be uninhabited. They were never completely gone, he told Sora during their daily research session. Humans left technology, caches all over the galaxy, some kind of insurance policy. Sora examined a device that looked like a simple metal cube, but contained computational power beyond anything the Dominion had ever built. This single unit has more processing capacity than our entire planetary network. How is that possible? Quantum dimensional processors, explained a familiar voice behind them. They turned to see Jin Wu materializing out of thin air. But now he looked different. His disguise was gone, revealing features that were clearly human but somehow enhanced. His eyes held depths that suggested vast intelligence and long experience. You are really human, Taemin said in wonder. 100%, Jinwoo confirmed, though we have changed quite a bit since your people last saw us. How many of you are there? Sora asked. Enough to reclaim what was taken from us. We have had 30,000 years to grow, learn, and prepare. The humans you destroyed were just children compared to what we have become. Deep in space, beyond the edge of the galaxy, something vast was stirring. The human fleet that approached was not just ships, but an entire civilization. Massive ark vessels carried billions of survivors, and their descendants. Factory ships built new technology as they traveled, and at the heart of it all was Jae-sung, the leader of the Terran remnant. Jae-sung was old beyond any normal human lifespan, kept alive by technologies that redefined what it meant to be alive. He had been a child when the Dominion tried to wipe out humanity. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Signal all fleet commanders, he ordered from his flagship's bridge. It is time to announce our return. The message that went out across the galaxy was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, reaching every world simultaneously. When the transmission began, Jae-sung's image appeared on screens everywhere, from the smallest communication device to the massive displays in Dominion government buildings. People of the galaxy, he began, his voice calm but carrying undertones of absolute authority. 30,000 years ago, the Dominion Council attempted to commit genocide against the human race. They believed they had succeeded. They were wrong. The image showed not just Jae-sung speaking, but views of the enormous human fleet approaching from deep space. Thousands of ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything in current galactic civilization. We did not die. We adapted. We learned. We grew stronger. And now we have returned to reclaim our place in this galaxy and to ensure that genocide never happens again. On Nexus Prime, the Dominion Council watched the broadcast in stunned silence. The human fleet visible in the transmission was larger than their entire military. Worse, the technology displayed was clearly beyond anything they could match. "We do not seek the destruction of other species," Jae-sung continued. "We seek justice for crimes committed against us. We seek acknowledgement of what was done. And we seek to build a galaxy where such horrors can never happen again." Young-soo found himself nodding along with the human leader's words. Everything Jae-sung said made sense. The Dominion had committed a terrible crime and had spent 30,000 years celebrating it instead of learning from it. But, Jae-sung's voice turned cold as winter, those who orchestrated our attempted extinction, those who gave the orders, those who carried them out, and those who have spent millennia celebrating our supposed death will face justice. This is not negotiable. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in chaos. Some species began immediate preparations for war. Others tried to open diplomatic channels with the approaching human fleet. A few, led by progressive leaders like Young-soo, called for the Dominion to accept responsibility for past crimes. General Min-ho was not interested in diplomacy. "Mobilize every ship we have," he ordered. "Call in favors from every allied species. If these humans want a war, we will give them one they will never forget." "With respect, General," Young-soo interjected, "perhaps we should consider their terms. They seem reasonable people who have legitimate grievances." "Reasonable?" Min-ho's scales darkened with rage. "They just threatened the entire Dominion. These are not the humans we remember. Something has changed them into monsters." "Or maybe," Young-soo said quietly, "we are the monsters, and they are simply seeking justice." Commander Wu-bin had been analyzing the human transmission with his Solari abilities. What he found terrified him more than anything else in his long existence. "The technology they displayed," he told the council, "it is not just advanced. It operates on principles we do not understand. They have found ways to manipulate reality itself." Sora had reached the same conclusion in her laboratory. The human artifacts she studied seemed to work by convincing the universe to operate differently. It was not just science. It was something closer to magic. They have become something beyond organic life, she explained to Taemin. Part biological, part technological, part something else entirely. Evolution guided by intelligence rather than random chance. Jin Woo appeared one last time in the council chambers, but now he was not alone. Two other figures stood with him, both clearly human but radiating power that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "You have 72 hours to begin evacuation of your military forces from human space," he announced. "Any Dominion vessels found in those regions after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." "What do you consider human space?" demanded Min-ho. Jin Woo smiled, and the expression was not entirely pleasant. "All of it," This entire galaxy belongs to humanity by right of survival, but we are generous. We will allow you to keep some systems for your own use, provided you accept the new order of things." "Never!" Minho roared. "We rule this galaxy. We will not bow to a species we already destroyed once." "You never destroyed us," Jinwoo replied calmly. "You only made us angry, and you really would not like us when we are angry." The three humans vanished, leaving the council to face the approaching storm. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what 30,000 years of human innovation and fury could accomplish. The age of dominion was ending. The age of retribution had begun. The 72-hour deadline had passed 3 days ago. Now the galaxy was learning what human patience looked like when it finally ran out. The Battle of Crixon Station was supposed to be the Dominion's first major victory against the returning humans. General Minho had assembled the largest military force in galactic history. 5,000 warships from dozen different species, all focused on defending the strategic station that controlled 3 major hyperspace routes. The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. Admiral Su Jin watched from her flagship as human ships moved through the enemy formation like ghosts made of death. The Dominion forces fired everything they had, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the human vessels, as if they were not entirely real. "Phase displacement technology," explained her tactical officer, a human named Hyun Woo, who looked barely 20, but had the eyes of someone far older. "We exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their weapons can only hit us when we allow it. The human counterattack was surgical and terrible. Weapons that did not destroy ships but simply made them cease to exist. Energy beams that passed through shields like they were not there. And worst of all, boarding pods that materialized inside. Enemy vessels without passing through the hull." Soonja was a civilian Valeth engineer working on Crixon Station when the humans came. She had been fixing a power coupling when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red, and then the bulkheads began opening like flowers. Through the holes stepped figures in armor that seemed to be made of flowing liquid metal. They moved with inhuman grace and speed, their weapons humming with power that made her scales itch. But what terrified Soonja most was how calm they were. No shouting, no battle cries, just quiet efficiency. "Attention station personnel," announced one of the armored figures. Her voice was female and completely emotionless. "I am Commander Yunji of the Terran Assault Corps. This station is now under human control. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed." Soonja had heard stories about human brutality from the old war. She expected torture, execution, or worse. Instead, the humans simply herded all the civilians into the station's main hall and began treating their injuries. They even shared their own medical supplies when the stations ran out. "Why are you helping us?" Soonja asked Commander Yunji. When the human medic finished bandaging her burned arm, Yunji's helmet retracted, revealing a face that was clearly human but somehow more than human. Her skin had a faint metallic sheen, and her eyes held depths that spoke of vast experience. "Because we are not our enemies," Yunji replied simply. "We remember what it means to show mercy to innocents." The distinction was important. While civilians were treated with surprising kindness, military personnel faced a very different fate. The Dominion officers who had participated in the battle were taken away for what the humans called justice hearings. None of them were ever seen again. Back on Nexus Prime, the Dominion Council was learning that their technological superiority had been an illusion. Sora presented her latest analysis to leaders who were growing more desperate by the hour. Their ships exist in at least 7 dimensions simultaneously, she explained. They can attack us from angles that do not exist in normal space. Our weapons are designed for 3-dimensional combat. We might as well be throwing rocks at lightning. There has to be a weakness, insisted Minho. Every technology has limitations. If there are limitations, they are beyond our understanding, Sora replied. The humans have essentially learned to rewrite the laws of physics on a local scale. Young Su had been quietly building support among moderate council members for a different approach. Perhaps it is time to consider negotiation, he suggested. They have proven their military superiority. Maybe we should listen to their terms. Negotiate with the species we tried to exterminate? Minho's scales flushed with anger. That would be admitting we were wrong. Maybe we were wrong, Young Su said quietly. The words fell into silence. For 30,000 years, no one had dared suggest that the human genocide might have been a mistake. It was the foundation of Dominion ideology, the proof of their right to rule. Commander Wu Bin was facing his own crisis of faith. As a Solari, he could process information at speeds that made him seem godlike to organic species. But when he tried to analyze human technology, his enhanced mind hit walls he could not overcome. They have learned to think in ways we cannot comprehend, he reported to the emergency session. Their strategy operates on levels of complexity that exceed our processing capabilities. What does that mean in practical terms? Asked a junior council member. It means we are not just losing battles. We are losing a type of war we did not even know existed. The proof came 3 days later when the humans attacked the fortress world of Dominax Prime. The planet was supposed to be impregnable, protected by shields that could stop planet-killing weapons and defended by automated systems that had never been defeated. The human fleet arrived and did something impossible. Instead of attacking the planet directly, they attacked its past. Hyunwoo stood in the temporal command center of his ship, manipulating controls that existed in 4 dimensions. Around him, reality bent and twisted as human technology reached backward through time to plant seeds of destruction in the fortress world's construction. Temporal charges placed, he reported to Admiral Su Jin. The planet's defenses were compromised during their initial construction 40,000 years ago. They just do not know it yet. Execute, Su Jin ordered. The fortress world's shields flickered and died as construction flaws that had never existed suddenly became real. Weapon systems failed because their power sources had been subtly damaged during assembly decades ago. The planet's defense grid collapsed without a single shot being fired at it. Impossible, whispered the fortress commander as he watched his impregnable world become defenseless in minutes. They changed the past. How can anyone change the past? The answer came from Jae-sung himself, who materialized in the command center as if stepping through an invisible door. We learned to see time differently, he explained to the shocked Dominion officers. Past, present, and future are just directions to us now, like up and down are to you. Jae-sung was ancient beyond normal human lifespans, but the technology that kept him alive had also enhanced him in ways that made him barely recognizable as the species the Dominion remembered. His presence seemed to fill the room with possibility and menace in equal measure. You tried to erase us from existence, he continued. So we learned to exist outside the normal flow of time. We have been preparing for this moment since before your species left their home worlds. The fortress commander, a veteran Krenth warrior, found himself unable to speak. The implications were staggering. If humans could manipulate time itself, then every victory the Dominion had ever achieved could be undone. Every defeat could be prevented. The very concept of cause and effect became meaningless. "What do you want from us?" the commander finally managed. "Justice," Jae-sung replied, "acknowledgement, and a guarantee that genocide will never happen again in this galaxy." "And if we refuse?" Jae-sung's expression did not change, but the air around him seemed to grow colder. "Then we will ensure that the species who ordered our extinction learns what extinction truly means." Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated. Dominion strongholds fell not through overwhelming force, but through impossible science. Weapons that fired backwards through time. Ships that attacked from parallel dimensions. Soldiers who could phase through matter at will. The human military had become something beyond conventional warfare. They fought like forces of nature given consciousness and purpose, and their purpose was very clear: the complete dismantling of the civilization that had tried to destroy them. Soonja found herself assigned to help with reconstruction efforts. On worlds the humans had conquered. She expected to see devastation and oppression. Instead, she found something that confused her more than fear ever could. The humans were rebuilding. They were making things better. Planets that had been strip-mined for resources were being restored to their original beauty. Species that had been enslaved by the Dominion were being freed and given their own governments. Technologies that had been restricted to the ruling classes were being shared freely. "I do not understand," Soonja told Commander Eun-ji during one of their conversations. "You have the power to destroy everything. Why are you helping instead?" Eun-ji looked out at the construction crews working to restore the planet's damaged ecosystem. Humans and aliens worked side by side, sharing knowledge and resources. "Because destruction was never our goal," she explained. "We want justice, not revenge. We want to build something better than what came before." "But the Dominion tried to kill all of you." "Yes. And that taught us the most important lesson any species can learn: that survival is not enough. What matters is what you become while surviving." As Soonja watched human engineers teaching Dominion scientists new technologies, she began to understand that this war was not about conquest. It was about transformation. The humans were not just defeating the Dominion, they were forcing it to evolve into something better. The capital world of the Galactic Dominion had never fallen to enemy forces in its 10,000-year history. Today, that record ended as human ships materialized in the skies above the great city of Eternus Prime like dark angels of judgment. But these were not the chaotic battles that had marked the war's earlier phases. The humans moved with careful precision, their ships taking positions around key government buildings while avoiding civilian areas entirely. This was not conquest. It was surgery. Dong-Wu was the last surviving member of the original Dominion Council. The others had fled to hidden bunkers or distant colonies, but he had remained in the capital. As the most senior Krenth politician, he felt responsible for facing whatever judgment the humans intended to deliver. He stood in the council chambers where 30,000 years ago his predecessors had signed the order for human extermination. The same room where they had celebrated their victory, the same room where they had declared that genocide was sometimes necessary for galactic peace. The great doors opened without sound, and 3 figures entered. Dong-Wu recognized them immediately. From intelligence reports, Admiral Su-jin, Commander Eun-ji, and Jin-Woo, but they were not alone. Behind them walked someone who made the air itself seem to vibrate with barely contained power. Kang Ho was old beyond comprehension, even by human standards. He had been present during the original evacuation 30,000 years ago, when the last human ships had fled into the dark between galaxies. Now he had returned to see the end of the story he had helped begin. "Counselor Dong-Wu," Kang Ho said, his voice carrying the weight of ages. "You are the last of your kind, in more ways than one." "The last council member, you mean?" Dong-Wu asked, surprised by his own calmness. "The last of those who still believed the old way was correct." Kang Ho approached the ancient council table where so many decisions had been made. "Your colleagues have either fled or accepted the reality of their situation. You remain here. Why?" Dong-Wu considered the question carefully. His forearms moved in the traditional Krenth gesture of acceptance. "Because someone should face the consequences of what we did. Even if I was not alive when the orders were given, I am part of the system that celebrated them." "An interesting perspective," said a new voice. Everyone turned as reality seemed to fold in on itself, revealing a figure that made even Kang Ho seem ordinary by comparison. Mi Young appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, her form shifting between states of matter and energy in ways that hurt to look at directly. She was young by human standards, born during the exile in the space between galaxies, but she represented something entirely new. A human who had never known a universe where her species was not capable of miracles. "You feel guilt for crimes you did not commit," Mi Young said to Dong-Wu. "Your emotions exist in patterns I can perceive across probability space. Fascinating." "What are you?" Dong-Wu whispered. "Evolution," Mi Young replied simply. "What your species could become if you chose to grow instead of stagnate." Admiral Su Jin activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. The Dominion's military forces had been neutralized, their government structures dismantled, their weapons of mass destruction disabled. The war was effectively over. "We have what we came for," she reported to Kang Ho. "Justice has been served against those who planned and executed the genocide. The oppressive systems have been dismantled. The question now is what comes next." Kang Ho walked to the great window that looked out over the capital city. Below, he could see humans and aliens working together to repair damage from the brief battle. No one was being forced to help. They simply saw problems that needed solving and set about solving them. 30,000 years ago, we fled this galaxy because we believed coexistence was impossible, he said. We were wrong, but only partially. Coexistence was impossible as long as systems of oppression were allowed to continue. Commander Yunji stepped forward, her armor retracting to reveal the augmented human beneath. The Dominion as it existed is finished, but the species that comprised it do not have to be. They can choose to be part of something better. And if they refuse? Dong-Wu asked. Then they can live on the reservation worlds we have prepared, Su Jin replied. Safe, comfortable, but isolated from the greater galaxy until they are ready to join galactic civilization as equals rather than rulers. Mi Young drifted closer to Dong-Wu, her multi-dimensional form stabilizing into something more recognizably human. But you will not refuse, will you? I can see the patterns of your future decisions. You understand what we are offering. Dong-Wu did understand. The humans were not seeking to replace one form of tyranny with another. They were offering partnership to anyone willing to accept that all sapient species deserved equal rights and protection. What guarantees do we have that humans will not become the same kind of oppressors the Dominion was? He asked. Kang Ho smiled. for the first time since entering the chamber? An excellent question. The answer is that you have no guarantees except our nature. We became what we are through suffering. We learned the value of freedom by having it taken away. We understand the importance of diversity because we nearly lost it forever. And, added Jinwoo, we have built safeguards into our own systems. If humanity ever tries to become an oppressive force, there are mechanisms in place to stop us. What kind of mechanisms? Mi-young's form flickered through several states of existence before settling on one that Dongwoo could perceive clearly. We have given artificial intelligences the power to override human decisions if we ever try to commit genocide or impose tyranny. We have limited our own authority so that we cannot become what we fought against. The implications were staggering. The humans had built restrictions into their own power structures to prevent them from abusing their technological superiority. They had learned from the Dominion's mistakes and taken steps to ensure they could not repeat them. There is something else you should see, Sujin said, activating another holographic display. The image showed a space station unlike anything Dongwoo had ever seen. It was beautiful and functional, organic curves blended with geometric precision. Around it, ships from dozens of species moved in peaceful coordination. This is Haven Station, Yunji explained. Built in the space between our galaxy and the next, it will serve as the new seat of galactic government. Government? Dongwoo asked. The Galactic Federation, Kang Ho said. A true democracy where every sapient species has an equal voice. Humans will be members, not rulers. But you have the power to rule, Dongwoo pointed out. Why give it up? Because we learned something during our exile, Mi-young replied. Power without accountability becomes corruption. Authority without consent becomes tyranny. We chose to grow beyond those failures. Outside the chamber windows, the work of rebuilding continued. But it was not just physical reconstruction. Dongwoo could see representatives from dozens of species, meeting in discussion groups, sharing ideas and resources. The humans were not imposing their will. They were facilitating cooperation. What happened to the other council members? Dongwoo asked. The ones who fled? Those who ordered or directly participated in the genocide have been arrested and will face trial, Sujin replied. Those who simply inherited the system will be given the same choice we are offering you. Join the new galactic order or live in comfortable exile. And General Minho? Kang Ho's expression darkened. He chose to fight to the end. He is dead, along with the handful of officers who refused to surrender even after defeat became obvious. Dongwoo felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that the violence was ending, regret for the waste of life, and hope for what might come next. What do you need from me? He asked finally. Help us build something better, Mi-young said. You understand. The Dominion system's better than we do. You know which parts were genuinely useful and which parts existed only to maintain oppression. Will anyone listen to me? I am part of the old regime. That is exactly why they will listen, Yunji said. Change is more believable when it comes from within. If you endorse the new system, others will be more likely to accept it. Dongwoo looked around the chamber one more time. This room had seen so much history, most of it dark, but perhaps it could see something better in the future. I will help, he said, but I have one condition. Name it, Kang Ho said. There must be a memorial. For the humans who died, yes, but also for the lessons we must never forget. Genocide must become impossible. not because we lack the power to commit it, but because we understand why we must not. Mi Young smiled, and for a moment her multi-dimensional nature made the expression appear to exist in all possible futures. Simultaneously, "Already planned," she said. "The memorial will be built on the site where the last human city fell 30,000 years ago. It will serve as a reminder of the price of hatred and the possibility of redemption." As the human delegation prepared to leave, Dongwu felt compelled to ask one final question. "Do you forgive us?" Kang Ho paused at the chamber doors. "Forgiveness is not ours to give or withhold, but we choose not to let the past define the future. What matters now is what we build together,